Greetings from a somewhat cold and very snowy Crowsnest Pass. We're out here camping for the weekend because it's Victoria Day and that's what you do despite knowing what the weather's going to be like. So let's see what we can find despite this unexpected, well, somewhat unexpected turn of events. We're going to kick off our weekend with a trip to the Bellevue Underground Mine Tour. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to bring a snow brush with me, so I have to improvise here and use this safety triangle that I have in the truck to clear some snow off before we can get on the road. Quick little walk for Tucker here before we get going. Dress warmly. It is cold in the mine. It ain't so great out here either. The Bellevue Mine originally opened in 1903 and closed in 1961. Over the course of that time, they took 13 million tons of coal from this mine. Now, I'm not allowed to do any video on the tour itself, so this next section's just going to be a series of still photographs. Everyone on the tour is issued a hard hat and a miner's lamp. From there, your guide takes you to the interpretive center where there are a number of mine artifacts on display, and he or she goes through some of the history of the mine and the ground rules for the tour. With the indoor portion concluded, it's time to head over to the mine entrance and actually go underground. Now, they've been conducting tours here since 1990, so the mine was pretty much closed up and sealed off for 29 years. It's really cool because as a child, I can remember driving by on the highway and seeing the boarded up, blockaded entrance and always wondering what it would be like to go inside. The underground portion of the tour lasts for about 45 minutes. Now, while the mine itself has about 240 kilometers of combined tunnel distance, you really only get to go in 1,000 feet. That's as far as they have made it safe for access. And at that point, when you're at your furthest in, you're about 150 feet below the surface of the ground.
And today was the day we finally got to see it. Our tour guide Elena was super informative and gave a real picture about what it might be like to work in the mine. My thoughts, it's very dark, of course. They give you a headlamp and it's very cold. It's snowing today on May 18th, and normally you think underground that the temperature kind of equalizes inside the earth, but it was very cold.
Adhering to the rules, we weren't able to capture any video on the tour itself. I took a few stills, so hopefully those turned out, even though it was dark down there. We're just in the truck now because it's cold and wet and rainy outside, and we're going to go check out some other sites. And we'll check out other sites soon enough, but you know, being on an underground mine tour is hard work, so I think it's time we stop for lunch. We have picked Chris's Restaurant in Coleman, Alberta for today's meal break. Just had a great lunch at Chris's Family Restaurant. Pro tip, if you're passing through Coleman, stop in. Good home-cooked meals. It'll be worth your time, trust me. Coleman's Main Street has one of the best collections of early 20th century buildings that I have seen anywhere in the province. So let's take some time and look at a couple of those, and then we're going to head over to the Crowsnest Museum and learn more about the area.
Now this reminds me of the
Museum has a really nice exhibit on the Hillcrest Mine disaster. The Hillcrest Mine disaster was an explosion that occurred on June the 19th, 1914, and to this day it remains the single worst mining disaster in Canadian history, with 189 men losing their lives. The museum is actually housed in the old Crowsnest High School, which opened in 1937 and ceased operation in 1963. It's been a museum since 1985. Men never mention anything to do with weight when women are present. I'm thinking we'll go to Zach's Meat and Groceries here in Coleman. Better call 3817, see if they're open. On to the second floor.
Coastal Normandy of landmines in preparation for D-Day. But this must be something that, I wonder if the school or something, because it's very, like, look at the writing and stuff.
Yeah.
Remember, it's always a good idea to donate to your local museums. Many of these places operate on shoestring budgets and require donations in order to stay open. So when you visit, throw a few bucks around if you can. I don't know, as soon as I get into a high school gym, I start getting horrible flashbacks. It's like, ugh. So I also should warn you, one of the dangers of being this handsome is to have a lineup of women waiting to marry you.
Oh, 192 Battalion.
Here we talk about a surprise visit. And what's the surprise? She's naked. Kids, don't smoke. Look what it does to your skin complexion. So earlier I said the school operated until 1963. That was according to the Alberta Register of Historic Places. The plaque here on the outside said it operated until 1980. You choose who's right. We're heading just a few doors down from the museum to check out the former Alberta Provincial Police Barracks. The Alberta Provincial Police were created in 1917 as a replacement for the Royal Northwest Mounted Police. One of the reasons for their formation was the RNWP was somewhat reluctant to enforce Alberta's prohibition law, which had come into force 1 year earlier. The neighboring province of British Columbia repealed their prohibition law in 1921. That meant the Crowsnest Pass became a major hub for the illegal transportation of alcohol into Alberta. These were the rum runners, which are part of the historical fabric of this area. This rum running would lead to the murder of APP Constable Stephen Lawson on the night of September the 21st, 1922. Now, in the interest of time, I'm going to give you the condensed version, but because this story really could be an entire video all on its own. So earlier that day, September 21, 1922, the police attempted a raid of the Alberta Hotel in nearby Blairmore, Alberta. One of the rum runners, Steve Picariello, raced off with a carload of booze and was hoping to make it to the BC border. The police in Blairmore called the Coleman detachment to let them know about the fugitive coming their way. Constable Lawson attempted to stop the fleeing car as it passed through Coleman by firing a couple of warning shots in the air, but Steve Picariello didn't stop. Lawson then commandeered a car from a local resident and a high-speed chase ensued. Lawson fired at the car and wounded Picariello's hand, but eventually had to give up the chase when his car got a flat tire. So word of this eventually got back to Steve's father, Emilio Picariello, who was the owner of the Alberta Hotel and the biggest rum runner in the area. Emilio, also known as Emperor Pick, was led to believe that his son was dead. Seeking revenge, he got in his car along with family friend Florence Lissandro, and they drove to the APP barracks in Coleman. Constable Lawson came outside, a struggle ensued, and he was shot dead right in front of the barracks and in full view of his family. Emperor Pick and Lissandro were tried for the murder and both were found guilty. They were hanged on May the 2nd, 1923. Lissandro was just 23 years old and was the only woman ever hanged in Alberta. Here is where Constable Lawson was shot and killed. right at this corner of the building. It's so important to remember that we're really just scratching the surface of the history of this area on this weekend. You know, there are so many stories and things that could be done here. There's probably a dozen different videos that could be made just in the Crowsnest Pass area here. Whether you're talking about the coal mining history, the rum running history, the alignments of Highway 3, the Crowsnest Highway through the area that's undergone a number of changes over the decades. There's no shortage of stories we could be telling, and we're just kind of hitting some highlights, checking things out, and then going from there. So, you know, as we get further and more opportunities to explore this area, we'll continue to tell stories from different perspectives. I hope you're enjoying what we've done so far here. One last stop on our way back to the campground. This is the Leitch Collieries Provincial Historic Site. Ignore that closed sign. That doesn't apply because the gate is wide open. This site was home to the Leitch Colliery Coal and Coke Company from 1907 to 1915 and was opened as a provincial historic site in 1983. If you're not familiar with the term colliery, it's essentially a coal mine. It's a British word that came over to Canada given our British heritage. Irony, keeping the rail cars moving. And if we look over here, there's a bunch of rail cars not moving. Amazing little snow bunny. Somebody has way too much talent. That is incredible that somebody made that out of snow. These ruins were the processing plant for the coal mine. The actual mine entrance was about 1.5 kilometers up the valley from this spot. Moving on from the powerhouse and engine shop, these are the remains of the mine manager's house. It was really elegant in its day. It had stained glass windows, a dumbwaiter to carry food from the kitchen up to the dining room, electricity, and indoor plumbing. I'm not sure, but we figured this is some sort of wash basin.
Yep. I wonder if the water came up through these pipes.
Oh, that could very well be. Because we know from the layout, this corner here was the laundry room.
Yeah, and the stairs going up.
Yeah, there was a spiral staircase right in that corner. This door led out to the veranda up on the second floor. What we're looking at over in this area here is where the main entrance hall would have been. Long since gone. It looks like the building burnt at one time just based on what you're seeing here along these walls. A lot of burn type marks and things. Where the fireplace would have been, right in the middle of the house, and it extended all the way up through to the third floor.
They had children's playroom there, 2 bedrooms there. Up top.
So yeah, this corner here would have been the furnace and utility room. And as you can see, there's a couple areas here, and here that have been bricked over that probably were coal chutes at one point.
And here, and this is probably the main drain.
But you know, to have the spare room on the front of the house like that, and look at the mountains, always fun. Yeah.
Good view of what the house used to look like when it was intact. And if I step outside, I can show you the same view today. Now here's the view from outside, very similar to the photograph that we just looked at. So that main staircase would have come up here onto the veranda, and then you had the wraparound veranda to the front and the side, an entrance into the second floor back here that led to the kids' play area. These would have been the master bedroom. This was the bathroom. This was a spare bedroom. So it's really interesting that this much of the house remains, so you can get a good idea of what the layout looked like. So that was a really fun little stop. The mine manager's house actually was way more interesting than it probably should have been. made so by the fact that it had a floor plan on one of the interpretive signs. So we spent a fair amount of time there checking it out and trying to, I'll let that car pass, trying to match the layup of the floor plan with the outlines we could still see of the windows and the doors in the building itself. So very interesting little stop. Like I said, probably more interesting than it should have been, but we find ways of making that happen. So this is a really good representation. This signboard here shows the powerhouse on the right, the washery on the left, and if we look up, it's a slightly different angle, but you can see the powerhouse as it sits today, and the washery would have been located right over there somewhere, of course long since gone. There's the foundation of the washery right in front there. So the washery was there, and then the tipple was there. These crazy people are in the foreground. Don't worry about them, they're fine. We have a look at the massive coal ovens that were built at this site. And up above, there's the remains of what's left there today. So I'm down here in the shadow of the coke ovens that are long since gone. Leitch Collieries has always been a very interesting place to me personally. Not because I have any real connection to the people who worked here, but because as a child, when we would come through the Crowsnest Pass, whether for camping or just passing through to somewhere else, we would always see these ruins on the side of the highway. And I say ruins because at that time, none of this area had been developed yet as a historical site. There were no interpretive signs. There were no pathways. It was just a bunch of stone buildings stuck off on the side of the road, covered by trees and brush. There was nothing, and I was always fascinated by what was here and what the history of the area was, and so it was really great to see that this got designated as a provincial historic site, and they went through and built the pathways and things so that people could actually come and check this area out and enjoy it in a safe manner and really get a chance to learn about the history of it versus just seeing some buildings there and not really having any context to what they mean. And when it comes to history, often context is what really takes it from just being, oh, that's kind of cool, to, wow, okay, that is really interesting. And that's, you know, sometimes I joke about our lack of research and things, but, you know, we like to try and put the cool into the history things and see things in a different way and check things out. So it's getting a little bit later here in the afternoon. It's still, as you can see, a bit of snow on the ground. It's stopped snowing now, still kind of cloudy. So we're probably going to make our way back to camp. Not sure what tomorrow's going to hold. I'm not sure if this is going to be one longer video or a series of smaller videos. I'll have to see how much footage I capture tomorrow that, you know, makes sense to how it gets put together. But from the Leitch Collieries Provincial Historic Site here just outside the Crowsnest Pass, we'll be back later.